Excellent. So, welcome once again. Here we are in this special launch session of a Doughnut Portraits Visualizer and Data Hub, which I've been looking forward to for quite some time. I'm joined here today with Greg Hart, who is a co-founder and facilitator at InceptionU, which is a software development learning organization that we at Doughnut Economics Action Lab work together with in order to create this tool. And Greg aims to blend creative, critical systems and computational thinking to produce a future-fit citizen. So this is one of his many hats, and I'm really glad that he could join us. Welcome, Greg. And we also have Tony Enerson, who is the lead technical facilitator at InceptionU. He's an experienced technology developer delivering early stage software products, teaching others to do the same through agile team leadership and project-based learning. And Tony was really leading so much that we will get into in a moment. I should introduce myself. I'm Andrew Fanning. I'm the research and data analysis lead at Doughnut Economics Action Lab. And the aim for this session today is to essentially launch this tool and get people using it. I hope that you will see that it's useful for practitioners, especially in the early stages of creating, if you've collected data, you've collected some indicators and targets, but that stage of turning those into a donut graphic can be quite challenging at the get-go. And this tool really aims to make that a lighter process. And so our plan is to walk you through the concept that drives the donut portrait methodology, like the concepts underneath it, and then dive into how this tool works. And we'll hear from Greg and Tony, who will share some of their experience there too. So, without further ado, if that sounds okay with everyone, I'm just going to keep blasting through to share a little bit. I thought that it would be useful to actually prepare some background on the conceptual foundations of the donut portrait. So, let me just walk us through that, and then I'll pass it over to Greg and then to Tony, and then we'll come back. So, many of you will be familiar with this image. It's the donut of social and planetary boundaries, created by my colleague Kate Rayworth, and it's really at the heart of so much of what we do at Doughnut Economics Action Lab. It shows a goal for humanity, really. It's about how can we meet the needs of all people? So how can we make sure everyone's above a minimum social foundation and in the green space of a donut without overshooting an ecological ceiling? I won't go deep into all of the conceptual foundations here, but we know that if we attach data to each of the different dimensions that we can see within the donut, both socially and ecologically, we see a picture that is very challenging, and to me shows a need for deep transformation. So billions of people falling short of meeting their most essential needs, while at the same time humanity collectively as a whole is overshooting, 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries shown in this image, which was created last year. And since it was created, we've actually overshot another one, the ocean acidification boundary. So clearly destabilizing, showing that our current system needs transformation. Now, if we get into a little bit of under the hood of if we want to create donut metrics for our places or that are inspired by donut economics, really there's 2 core points that the donut aims to make visible. It says that we should avoid critical human deprivation, whatever that means in your place, and we should avoid critical planetary degradation. Both of those terms and definitions can kind of change over time and as our understanding of what critical degradation and deprivation actually entail. So one of the core tools that we work with at Doughnut Economics Action Lab is to say, okay, we have this global picture for all of humanity, but if we want to dive into a local context, then we actually need to free up some space in there so we can unroll the donut and zoom in to open up space between the ecological ceiling and the social foundation. And that's really what the donut portrait sets out to do. It aims to answer a very big question, which is, from a data-led perspective, how close is our place to being a home to thriving people in a thriving place while respecting the well-being of all people and the health of the whole planet? So that's a very big question, but it can be broken down into these 4 different sub-questions, or these 4 lenses, as we call them, that try to balance local aspirations like how can we be thriving people in a thriving place, with global connections, recognizing that we need to respect the health of all people and the whole planet. And so you can see these four lenses that are shown on the screen right now, that if you look from a local ecological if you look from a really data-led perspective, I won't go deep into the methodologies and all of the questions underpinning that. We have other tools that provide such insights, but we can think that within each of these lenses, which would be local ecological, local social, global ecological, global social, there are separate dimensions like food or health or education or climate change or chemical pollution, and so on, that can be used to really just set out what is the aim, where we want to be within this dimension. So for food, for example, how can we have no one undernourished or zero food insecurity? And how are we doing with respect to that goal? So globally, we know there's around 20% of the global population that is experiencing food insecurity. And so when you compare the goal with current performance, that is what sets out those wedges, or in this unrolled version, the bars that you can see here, which is just an illustrative approach. So this is, again, from a data-led perspective, how can we try to make visible the goals and performance within a donut framework? And so we then say, okay, if we unrolled all of this, we of course want, now we're interested in how can we re-roll it to make visible this local context that needs to take into account that local aspirations and global connections. And this is what we launched in 2020, was the first public demonstration of this methodology. It was launched by the city of Amsterdam. And since then, there have been now more than 50 local governments who are putting donut economics into practice in their vision, their strategies, their processes. Not all of them from a data-led perspective. It's actually moved beyond just finding targets and indicators to looking at strategies and processes and so on, but many of which are still adopting this data-led approach as part of a set of tools. And just this is the final thing before I pass over to Greg, is when you actually see how different places are engaging with the tools and the concepts of donut economics, it's really, I mean, it's really motivating to bring together this community of change makers, and also, just to see the different ways in which places find entry points for action in their own context. And in a cities gathering that we held in Germany, in Bad Nauheim, 2 years ago now, we presented, it was data focused, and we presented this idea of like, how can we bring in this re-rolled visualization and make it easier to actually create this for practitioners? And Greg, who is a donut flashing around his head here, actually came to the front and said, actually, I have some experience with some software developers, and maybe we could bring this tool to life. And I'll pass it over to Greg here to share the next step of the journey.
Thanks, Andrew. Hello, everybody. Great to be here. Yeah, and the context for this is that, I mean, the donut is about thriving people and thriving places, and we all know that those are interactive with each other. And I would say in my journey, as an entrepreneur about 8 years ago, I kind of worked in both directions. So, for the thriving people part, we created InceptionU, which was an attempt to create an alternative school, basically, that looked at how we bring people into new understanding around skill that was an answer to what we saw as some of the deficiencies in the way that education is traditionally delivered. And some of those key things that we focused on were the lack of what we call meta skill development. So people's ability to think critically in systems, creatively, to collaborate successfully with other people, and to work on things that actually really matter as a way of pulling and driving learning. And in the early days of Inception, we spent a lot of time working with full stack software development as the technical package of skills that were integrated. And of course, lots has changed in the last 7 or 8 years. Like if you look at lately, what's happening in the world of technical skills like software development with the sudden emergence of artificial intelligence and its usefulness in coding, it really changes the landscape quickly, which reinforced kind of where we started, which is to say that the meta skills are the things that don't change over time. 300 years ago, if you had strong meta skills, it helped you out. 300 years from now, assuming we make it, which I'm hoping we do, then that's also going to help us out, at any time. And so being able to link that with technical skills produces a great understanding of what projects need to be able to do. And so I match that up with the work that I do in my other company, which is Future Fit Cities, which is more organized around the idea of the thriving places, which is my big connection to donut economics. And so, yeah, when we ended up in this meeting together and we were talking about this thing, as Andrew said, it was kind of like, oh, well, maybe there's a thing we can do because we have learners in our programs all the time who are developing these skills and are needing to work on projects. And so it seemed like an absolutely obvious thing to connect our learners with this very meaningful project. And then it got carried on from there as well. So it was a great opportunity to get to work with Doughnut Economics Action Lab on this project. As I said, it's great to be able to give learners really meaningful projects, and this is right up there as far as that goes. And to talk a little bit more about kind of how it unfolded at a more technical level on the day to day, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Tony, who he led the team basically that did the work. And so I'll hand it over to Tony.
Thank you, Greg. Hello, everybody. My name is Tony. I'm a longtime software developer here, based out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And as I kind of fell into teaching through my connection with Greg, and because I'm actually not a teacher by training. My background is building systems in teams, and so I was really attracted to this InceptionU method that Greg was talking about, which is, what if anybody could learn anything, design something, and change everything? And I was really compelled by this. And so what we do to underscore that is we attract people who aren't necessarily technology developers, right? And we focus on giving them or talking about the models and how software development works as a practice. And in doing so, we run the whole program with project based. So we're always building things. So that was our approach, is a really learn by doing approach, to underscore that the team who we got to actually build this was made up of like a variety of people. I had a person who was a new chemical engineer from Brazil. I had a business student. I had a seasoned non-technical project manager come into the program who was on this, and actually administrator from an arts college, a local arts college. And right now I'm working with a computer science graduate from a school in Africa. All of these people, diverse backgrounds, come in, and we lead them through this process, this project-based process. What you're looking at today with the Doughnut, with the Portrait Hub, is this is a project, a final project. This would be like a final project situation. We run the program with three projects, and in what's particularly remarkable about the Portrait Hub is that we normally only work with local entrepreneurs here in Calgary. So when Greg brought this through, and it became our first international project, and I got the I got the honors of being able to lead it, because we always put, professional technical leadership on each of these projects. And through this process, actually watching the growth of the individuals who contributed, it's just the best, right? And then the tool itself, of course, is usable and deployed at the end of it, which is also amazing when you consider where they came from and in 6 months how far they can get, right? This project would take about 3 months of their time to do. What is also remarkable about this project, of course, is getting to work with Dr. Fanning. So I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of working with Andrew, but it's always a delight. And most importantly, bringing that ability to make a right now decision versus a we're going to do this later decision. So critical when you're rapidly building a system up with a limited time window. So yeah, well, I hope you like the tool. I hope you love the tool. Now, keep in mind, this was built by students. Bugs may exist in this tool. So you may be, if you're going ahead and using it and you come across something that doesn't quite work right, we had a long list of things we wish we could have done. We focused down on the essential. What could we fit into the time we had? So there will be ways that you will think of to do things a little bit differently. I ask you to kind of collect that feedback and give it back to us, and over time. That would be fantastic. Thanks. Yeah. And so that's a little about me, a little bit about the team. I am going to hand this back to Andrew so he can move on.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Tony and Greg, for sharing, how we came to this. So let me jump right back in to actually say, what is this tool about and how does it work and how can you use it for your own initiative? So this version of it, it's really meant to provide a tool for practitioners, analysts, scholar activists who have collected indicators, and it provides an approach to compile those all in a single database and make them visible across those four lenses of the portrait methodology that I just mentioned. That's really what it sets out to do, and hopefully the name, well, you will see right now. So let me just walk you through a little bit on how to use this tool. So the website where you can dive into the tool yourself, it's available at the bottom of the screen there, doughnut.visualiser.doughnut.economics.org. And when you do that, you will come to quite a simple page that shows portraits and the About page. You can view the portraits that are existing publicly available in the card view or in a map view. And so that's essentially the available information, because the big invitation when people do use these tools, I foresee it being most useful at the initial stages. Like I'm not foreseeing many public, publications of these diagrams, but they might be a useful kind of entry point for a data-led graphic that can then be used as an input to create publication quality types of metrics. But the idea here for the first purposes is almost like as an internal reflection tool, or to get buy-in, or to make the data that you've collected visible easier than it would otherwise be. So if you wanted to actually dive in, then the first thing is to create a user account. It's a very simple sign-up process. Even if you are already available on have a profile on the Doughnut Economics Action Lab platform, for technical reasons, we're asking you to do another sign-up process here. And there are a few do's and don'ts, if you will, for using this, just to help people keep in mind what are some of the advantages and things to keep in mind here. So please do use this Doughnut Portraits tool for your place-based context. Ensure that you have documented all data sources. Share back your learning critically. Well, once you're ready, just hit the public button that's available, and then others can see your data selection choices and so on. And the idea is that by making the choices of others visible, that really helps people who to learn faster and so on. And do share any feedback that we have. We do ask, don't use or adapt this tool to analyze a business, that we have a separate business policy where we actively ask not to attach indicators and targets to business-led initiatives. Don't underestimate the time-intensive nature of data-led methods, especially because the time it takes to select and document indicators and targets can be a lot. Don't leave out any of the four lenses, because we believe each of them reveals a distinct and crucial angle. And don't use this tool as a consultant unless you have, been followed Deal's policy for consultancies and professional advisors, which is available on our platform to become an organization in action and so on and so on. So once you create a user account, it will be approved And then you can get to the stage of actually creating your portrait. So to create a portrait, there's two steps. The first one is you set in the portrait information for your place. So I'm showing on the screen here one that's just a test version that I created for the city where I'm sitting in Cadiz in Spain. And you can see it, you provide the location, which is linked to the map, an email, a description, and whether it's public or private. And then you say, okay, go to the next stage. And the next step is actually creating the portrait through the data entry process. And I guess the key thing to note here is that in the menu, we've tried to make it quite light and simple, hopefully for people to follow. You can see those four lenses that I described earlier. That's how the data entry process is structured. So the local social lens, within that lens, you would just go in and add rows for each of the dimensions that you have data available for. So you would food, water, health, education. Then you go to the local ecological lens and you would add in rows for each of those, and so on and so on. And once you get to the stage where you've gotten through all of your indicators and targets that you've collected, then there you would move to the view portrait stage. And here the visualizer spits out this basic donut diagram based on the information that was inputted. So you can see all of the local indicators are in a lighter red, and the global indicators are in a darker red. And you can download the diagram. You can also, if this is your portrait, you can of course go back in to edit the portrait at any way. That loop I think is really important because oftentimes the act of visualizing can reveal things that look strange or that you didn't expect or so on. And so that being able to go back into the data process is key. You can also see the data that was inputted, which is a basic record of what was put there. It's not enough to kind of replicate the results, though. Like we haven't put in a thing where you would put in all your sources and where you got the data and so on, because there's often a bit of analysis that is required in order to get to a visualization stage. So we ask people to please maintain a spreadsheet or something where you have all your sources documented, and that you could add that to the description of the portrait if once you make it public, or if you publish the document already, and so on. You can of course download the data table, and so on and so on. So that, in a nutshell, is what is the tool. So create a user account, create a portrait, view the portrait. It sounds simpler than the process was when we first began, because one of the reasons why it was great to work with Tony and Greg on this, and the other student developers, was that it wasn't fully clear to me what could be possible within a certain amount of time. And so it was really helpful just to work with Tony and to scope out at least a first version of this tool so that we could get it out there. It is very much a first version. If I wanted to take you to you can still see my screen, right? I shared that correctly. You can see the portrait hub? Yeah. So this is the live version of the hub, where, as I said, it's portraits. There's an about page. You can see the card view, the map view. Currently, there's three public versions, one of which is the Caliph one that I showed earlier. If you go into, I'm not logged in at the moment, but so if you go into the Caliph version, you can see all of the data that I just inputted. And if you wanted to download that for some reason, it's available, as well as the indicators that were actually selected, which I think if you click on them, you can actually read the whole information that's there. The About page, which is where I will very much recommend that you go if you want to learn more. I put a decent amount of work into trying to explain why use this tool, how to use it, including some of the nitty-gritty details that we've come across so far, and some ideas on where to go next as well. So some of the other data-led tools that are available on the Deal platform. And that's as far as we got so far.